Well, thanks for joining. I need to do a little intro as always, so bear with me. Here we go.
Shoots winning in the middle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, John Hewitt.
Hey!
Evening, folks.
Yes. Thanks for joining, John. If ever you can just go on mute now, and I'll just kick on with some questions for John. And again, thanks, John, for joining. You know, it's after a game like today to talk to someone who actually knows football and how to play it, and I'm sure how.
There's somebody else coming on.
So yeah, appreciate you diving on. Obviously, last time you were here, of course, you had to make a sharp exit because
Yeah, the good lady broke her. Well, she fell outside the front door and shattered her arm, broke her elbow, and broke her wrist and her hand. So she's actually she just got out of hospital today. She had an operation. She had 3 plates put in her wrist and her hand. So she'll be recovering for the next 2 months.
so you'll be running around for a different reason now then.
Exactly. I've been doing that for the last 2 weeks.
I might as well kick it off. Did you ever have any kind of injuries that you were out of the game for a wee while with? Like, you know, you mentioned some plates there. That's pretty serious. Was there anything you were?
This show's not long enough. I had honestly, I had plenty. I probably, well, in my footballing career, and that's out with Aberdeen as well, I've probably had somewhere in the region of about 10, 11 operations. So
That's a lot.
quite extensive. The worst being actually when I left Aberdeen, I went to Celtic. That was the worst one. I ruptured my medial ligament, you know, and at the time, they didn't diagnose the injury properly. You know, I was playing against St Mirren at Love Street, and I just jumped up for a cross ball with Campbell Money, and when I fell, I twisted my knee. I thought I'd done my cartilage, couldn't continue, and then I had to get ice, you know, the usual treatment and stuff. And then about 6, 8 weeks after that, I started running, but I could run in a straight line, not a problem. But if somebody rolled a ball to me and I had to pass it with my instep, it was just excruciating pain. But even this after this time, you know, it's 2 months. They still hadn't diagnosed my injury, so back and forth hospitals, and I had believe it or not, I had 2 arthroscopies done, and they still couldn't pick it up. And then when they took me in, opened up my knee, then obviously they realised that the medial ligament had detached itself of the bone, the top thigh bone. So basically, I could take my knee, you know, and open it out to the side, you know, like I said, and nothing supporting my knee. And I believe it, I actually, I played 3 games for Celtic coming back with a ruptured medial ligament. You know, like, it was crazy. Billy McNeil was the manager at the time, and then as I said to you, the 6, 8 weeks I was not playing, I started training, and I could run. And then on the Saturday, they were playing Aberdeen at Parkhead, believe it or not. And he said to me, "How you feeling?" I says, "Nah, I'm struggling." He says, "Oh, you'll be okay. I'm going to play you on Saturday." I says, you must be joking." I says, I can't play. I says, my knee's gassed. "No, I've been watching you. You're running fine. You'll be okay. You'll be okay." Stupidly, I decided, okay, I'll give it a go. Honestly, worst thing I've ever done in my life. I get cortisone jabs in my knee. I couldn't play. I could run in a straight line, but I couldn't pass a ball. You know, it was horrendous. And then I played 3 games like that, and then I think it was Dundee or something at Parkhead, and it ended up about 3 o'clock in the morning, jumping in a taxi and going to hospital myself because I was in that much pain. You know, and that's when the things sort of sped up, and then they decided, right, we need to take him in, and they opened him up, and then that's when they found I ruptured the medial. So that injury sort of basically put me out for a whole year, you know. So it was a bit of a bummer, like, but
I thought it was maybe just a lobotomy that you had when you joined Celtic, like, but you know, it's
These, I mean, when you play, I mean, you don't expect to get injured. You know, you get your all and that, but sometimes some guys sail through their careers with no injuries. You know, and one or two guys pick up serious injuries. Unfortunately, I had picked up one or two myself. You know, which I needed either surgery or a lengthy layoff. But you just got to pick yourself up and go through it again, get yourself fit, get yourself match fit, play the games. You know yourself. You've probably been in there yourself. So it's um, it's demoralising, because you're sitting watching the boys playing and you want to be out playing, but there's nothing you can do. You just got to go through the getting yourself fit again, and then playing, reserve games and games to get you fit and match fit, and then hopefully you get your opportunity to play again.
right. It's it must be difficult as well going from like you started a lot for Aberdeen. You certainly started. They call you the super sub, but really you started a lot more games for Aberdeen than you ever will.
Yeah, I mean, I got that tag pure and simply because of that season '83, and that was the one I was out quite a lot. I know big Graham Forbes done me at Motherwell. I was in plaster. He'd done all my ligaments in my ankle. I was in plaster for 12 weeks with that, and then I was trying to get myself back, and I fortunately. Fergie put me on the bench against Bayern in the quarterfinals, and that's where I basically got the tag. But as I keep saying to people, if people know and they look at the records, I started a lot more games than I actually did as come on as a substitute, So
That was one of the first conversations I think we ever had back when 20 odd years ago was about the super sub tag, and you reminded me quite frank. I started more games than I was a sub. I remember that quite.
well, you don't want to be branded super sub, unfortunately. But as I say, just that season, I was fortunate to come on a few games and score important goals for the club, So that's where the tag seemed to come from. But well,
Going back to right way back to the beginning, we take you through this is your life, right? So how were you actually spotted? Were you was it Middlefield, or was that your son Nicky, or what was the deal with you? Where were you spotted?
no, I just like everybody else. You play football at your primary school, and then you go to secondary school. I played boys' club football as well, but I was fortunate enough as a young boy that I played with a lot of good players that played around about me as well at school level. So winning was easy because we won everything. At primary school, secondary school. We were the first Aberdeen side in 33 years to win a Scottish Cup at primary level, and then the same group of boys. When we moved it to secondary school, we were coached by Bobby Clark and Lenny Taylor, and then we went on to win the Scottish Cup again at secondary level. So it was just like a continuation. So the winning habit, which everybody knows it's the best thing in the world to have, it was there for us, So but in saying that, you've got to have it. If you haven't got it, then there's no point in playing. You've got to want to be the best that you can be, or otherwise, go and do something else.
We schooled immediately from school into Aberdeen Club? Was that
Well, I mean, as I say, I was fortunate when I was at primary school, probably for the age of 9. I was getting a lot of attention because I was really quick and I scored a lot of goals. So I used to go in my school holidays. I used to go a lot of clubs down in England, and for a couple of weeks trial, just to go and see what they were like, and what they had to offer, sort of thing, But as I progressed to getting closer to leaving school, then I was starting to get even more attention because of what was happening with my, football locally and with Aberdeen, and I had the decision to make, where I wanted to go. Basically, I was very fortunate. I could have basically, without blowing my own trumpet, I had the pick of any club in the country. I could have signed for Manchester United. I was down there for supposedly a week. Dave Sexton was a manager, and he took me into his office after the second day, asked me to sign, but I said to him, I'm not sure. So he flew back up to Aberdeen with me the following day to meet my folks. and then I couldn't give him a straight answer. I knew I had a gut feeling, that I was always getting signed for Aberdeen, but I didn't have the balls to tell him. So I sent him back down to Manchester the next day, and then I phoned him up when he got there, and I just said, "Look, I'm really sorry, but decided to sign for Aberdeen." And that was just when Alex Ferguson was coming to Aberdeen. He didn't know it because he tried to get me to go to St Mirren, and he was there as well. But Fergie came to Aberdeen that week, and his first signing was me. Him and little Bobby Calder, who's the chief scout, came up to my house, well, my parents' house, and tried to give me the whole spiel about signing for Aberdeen. Little did they know that I had already made up my mind I was getting signed for Aberdeen, so it was an easy sell, So I let him give all the spiel and that, and then I said to him, "Oh, look, I will be signing for Aberdeen." So that was it.
Nice. That's pretty sweet. Well, thanks. We're very glad you did. Let me just say that.
Don't mind.
Um, was there anything you would have ever done? I mean, obviously you were young, but did you ever want to be anything else?
No, no, it was always football.
Aye.
Always football. I mean, back in my time at school, it was football, football, and football. First thing in the morning, you go to school before you went in. You were playing in the playground. You were playing at your break. You were playing at lunchtime, after school, till your parents shouted you in. So it was just that was it. It was football. And as I say, I was very fortunate that I was lucky enough to get the chance to become a professional.
And what about who did you look up to? Like, did you have a particular football idol?
Well, with Joe Harper was my idol.
You-
Yeah, I used to go to Pittodrie on a Saturday and with my cousins and my uncle and stand in the beach end with them, and watch. And wee Joe, obviously, he was the king of Pittodrie at the time, so he was the one that I used to look up to. And it was funny because one of my close friends, as you know, but sadly he's not with us anymore, Neil Cooper. Neil and I were both ball boys at Pittodrie, so Teddy Scott knew us because of our commitments to the local football and what we were doing, and he asked us, "Look, do you want to come and be ball boys?" But we were only, I think it was about 11, 12 year old, so we used to go to Pittodrie on a Saturday and do the ball boy thing and that, so we got to know everybody, got to meet all the players, and then it's funny, I'm well, with Joe, I'm actually I'm very friendly with Joe. I have a chat with him on a Wednesday night normally.
he's a sound guy, is he? My dad, who's on this call as well, I think I'm pretty sure I told you, but when my mum and dad my dad was at football one day, and my mum went into labour, and he wouldn't have, he got a call on the tannoy. Basically, you need to go home. Your wife's gone into labour, right? Basically, come on the tannoy saying there's a call for you. You need to go. You need to go. And my dad had been to the toilet because we've got this Reed syndrome. We're always in the toilet, right? We're always in a pee. And anybody who's drinking at night is probably in the same boat. They already burst.
Oh, cheers.
And aye. And he got this tannoy announcement to say to go home, and he came back. He's like, nah, you're talking rubbish. You're talking rubbish. And I believe my granddad, who was there at the time, says, no, it's true. You've got to go. And everybody round about says, no, you've got to go. And he went home. He picked my mum up, went to ARI, and he wouldn't go in until he heard the final score. And and he was convinced that he was going to call me Joe after his hero as well, which was Joe Harper. And of course, my mum, who is the boss, she decided no, that wasn't going to be the case. So I'm sure we've all got our stories about Joe Harper, and it's funny. I've met him since becoming an adult, and he's still a gentleman, isn't he? He's just
Oh, yeah, yeah, he
fun
is.
for everybody.
Yeah, he holds a prolific record. I don't think it'll ever be beaten at Pittodrie. It was just a great finisher, wee Joe. Great finisher.
So absolutely. So going to shall we say, the manager of the century, Mr. Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
Obviously, you spent a number of years with Alex, and obviously you were a teenager when you first started playing.
Hmm.
He obviously came into your life. He revolutionised the city, the country, to a sense, Europe and potentially the world looking in. Who's this Aberdeen team? Who's this John Hewitt? So with him and Archie Knox, obviously him being a young guy himself, Alex Ferguson, coming from St Mirren, where it didn't quite work out for him, and there was a bit of a hoo-ha, what happened there. It must have been strange. This guy coming in with this, what did he have? Did he have a presence? Did he just come in and start screaming? Was he calm? Was it Archie Knox? What was it like in that dressing room? Say you were, was there any difference between playing against St Mirren and playing against Celtic?
No. But initially, his first season was quite difficult for him. He'll openly tell you that. It was getting into the dressing room, finding out the characters that he had, but it was installing this winning mentality into the squad of players that was already there, because it's too easy. You can look at Aberdeen, you can look at the other sides and that, and you've got to have that winning mentality, or else when you play the Old Firm, you're beat before you've even started, and that was the thing that Fergie really changed at Pittodrie, and at the previous Aberdeen sides would have been going down to Parkhead or Ibrox thinking, well, if we get a point here today, that's a brilliant result. Whereas he was telling us we were better than them, and then go down there and show their fans, rub it in their face, and but you've got to have good players though, and we did. We had good players, and with guys that could take the ball, pass the ball, and create chances. So, and back in that day, you could pass it back to the goalkeeper as well. So, you can imagine go to Ibrox, Parkhead, keep possession of the ball, roll it back to Jim. Jim could pick it up. Obviously, the rules and everything have changed now, but so. But we always believed in each other, and you knew you had a job to do. Him and Archie were very thorough on their watching opposition, their dossier of individuals, especially when we played in Europe. But they knew, domestically, they knew everybody inside out, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then they would change certain formations to play against certain teams. Like, for instance, when we played Dundee United, I knew I was always going to be playing against Dundee United because I always used to score against Dundee United. That was my team. I think I probably, to this day, maybe still hold the record for the most goals against United. I'm not sure, but I'm up there anyway, but he was so thorough, and he wasn't the best coaching at the coaching side. Archie was better than him, although Fergie would like to tell you is, but there's loads of stories about that. But he was so thorough, on the opposition, and as I say, just installing the belief, and the winning mentality. If you didn't have that, then you were out the door. You had to have that in abundance. The determination to win.
Where do you think, based on since Alex Ferguson's left, I know there's been a few managers come and gone as well. Is it fair to say that we often don't look up for it when we're playing against Celtic or Rangers, or we seem to be a bit framed?
I honestly believe, Adam, and I've said it, not just because of the era I played in, but it's individuals. It's 11 players that go on the park. At the end of the day, it's 11v11, and at this moment in time, it's 11v11 in an empty stadium. So these Aberdeen players will never get a better opportunity to stand up to the Old Firm and go down there and beat them in their own patch. But they've got to go out there, they've got to put in a shift, do their job, but they've got to stick together and actually believe that they can beat them. And I actually think that there's too many of the guys haven't got that winning mentality. They haven't got that real belief that they can beat the Old Firm. That it's like, oh well, I maybe will. No, it's not good enough. You've got to be able to go and do it. And even if you start the game and it goes against you, that's when you've got to stick collectively as a group and keep doing the right things, passing it, creating opportunities, and an opportunity will come your way. It's up to that person to take it and get your team back in the game, So it's belief, real belief, and I don't think there's enough of this current, well, not just the current squad, the teams after, Fergie left, that might have been one or two that have went to Parkhead and Ibrox and got a result, but it's been able to do that continuously. That's a sign of a real quality side.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. The Fergie and the Knox Brigade, they got you in this mentality that you could do it, and there was no question. You were just going to get it done, and you just going to get it done. And you've said yourself in the past. there were some good players at the club, but when you went up against some of the players like Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, these were world class players. And
Yeah.
most of you guys were local lads, but there was this ethos, there was this winning mentality that you've spoke about.
Yeah, well, basically, we weren't scared of anybody. You know, he installed that belief that we were good enough. Collectively, we were good enough. We fought for each other on the park. You know, we worked hard for one another. And even when you're playing, there you go. You mentioned Bayern again. 11 German internationalists playing on their side. The best side in the competition in '83. And Fergie told us that. You know, but after that game, he said to us, "What an opportunity you guys have got to go to the final. You've just knocked out the best team in the competition," and we did. They were the best team. They were the best team. So it's, as I say, it's that winning mentality. It's great to have it in any walk of life, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're playing your mate at darts or pool or table tennis or whatever it is. You've got to want to beat him, you know. And if you haven't got it, then sorry, go and play dominoes or do something. But football's the only way you're going to be successful.
That you know, obviously the most successful night of our club's history, and you know, arguably your most successful goal. You know, there's lots of chat about they put you on, but they were going to take you off again because you weren't running far enough and all this stuff.
No, I'll tell you what happened. He wanted me to stay up the park, just keep the length of the game, but as you saw, it was like a paddy field, you know. There was about that of water on the pitch, and when the ball was landing, it was just like splatter on a puddle. It wasn't moving at all, and it was hard to try and run with the ball. And I kept drifting back, coming further and further back to try and get a touch of the ball and get in the game. And he was shouting, "Hewitt, get up the fucking park!" So he was getting off his head, and I was throwing him with deaf ear. But eventually, I got the word that I better get up there, you know, or I'll get huckled. But the rest history, as you say, you know, if it happened, and I was just there at the right time. He even gave me a stick for not making a near post run, but I tried to explain to him I had no defenders to lose. You know, it was me bearing down on the goalkeeper. I was watching Mark in the wide area because Mark had a tendency to beat somebody and then double back and try and beat him again, you know, so you weren't sure. So I was like watching him, but at the same time looking at the goal, you know, as I'm moving forward. And then when he beat the guy, just touched it at the side and played a cross in. I was basically watching the flight of the ball come across, looking at the goalkeeper on his goal line, and the goalie was like stranded. You know, he really should have moved a lot earlier. If he had, he would have caught the cross, but he didn't. He was rooted to his line, and when he did decide to come, it was past him. So basically, he's dived out there. All I had to do really was just let the ball hit my head and guide it into the empty goal. You know,
you watch plays, and we've been at a couple of the centenary things as well, and you know, obviously the fans can't kind of get enough of you guys, especially when you're together as a team. But a team you were, and you know, some of your teammates that night were incredible. Peter Weir was
everyone that night played their part. You know, every individual played their part because they knew what was at stake. You know, the being crowned as the Cup Winners' Cup champions at '83 and beating the mighty Real Madrid. You know, it doesn't get any. In fact, we might actually still be the last team to beat Real Madrid in a European final. That's something for you to look up. Right. Aberdeen. Yeah, if you think the European,
there was a Super Cup, I think I had a Super Cup, but for the main tournaments, yeah, the main European trophies,
yeah. If you think of it, you know, the amount of finals that Real Madrid have been in, Champions League finals and stuff, and they've won them all, you know. So I'm trying to think. It might be worth looking, but I think we were probably one of the last sides to beat them in an actual final.
Incredible. That's unbelievable. Yep. That's so. Cheers, Mark. Thanks.
I'm so conflicted because I want to say the Super Cup is a real final, so we have 2 European trophies and everyone else has one.
Well, listen, we're the only Scottish team here. The 2, see that? It's Eamon's shirt, the 2 stars in his.
The 2 Mickey Mouse.
The only Scottish team have that. But Celtic haven't got it, and neither has Rangers.
That's it. Tell me what you know, you guys were used to being under a certain regime. You knew what you were doing. You were coming in every day for training. You had the same guys, the same banter. People came and went, but your manager left. Man United came calling. I mean, what was it like when on the day? Do you remember the day itself and afterwards? Was there a gloom in the dressing room? Did you still have that winning mentality, or was it like, shit?
Well, I remember it quite clearly, yeah, because he came into the dressing room with Archie, you know, and he broke news to us all that Man United had come calling, you know, and he was going to take the opportunity. So it was a real blow, you know, because we're still a formidable team then, you know, and that was the turning point for me when Alec left. That although we still had the nucleus of the team, you know, I was only one Alex Ferguson. You know, he knew how to get it across, and he knew how to get the best out of his players. So when Ian Porterfield came in, you know, it was chalk and cheese. And I mean, God bless Ian, he's not with us anymore. But you know, when you saw his style of management to Fergie's, you know, Fergie managed initially with fear. You know, he was crazy. You know, the stories you hear about him, like kicking the boots and hitting Beckham and throwing cups at you, they're all true. You know, he was an absolute nut job in the dressing room. I've seen it myself with the jumpers off, throwing at him, and you know that we've been players have had to separate manager and players, and just because of the heat and the passion at the time. You know, we've come in at half time in certain games thinking we've done well, and he's just went through the team like a dose of salts. You know, he's slaughtered everybody. So you're thinking, fuck's sake, I'm thinking we're doing well, and he's just absolutely grilled us. So you always had to be on your toes, you know, and he was always pushing you, trying to get you to strive to do better all the time, you know, and that was it. That was his success. Yeah. So when Ian came, totally different. You know, his man management was decent enough, you know, but his discipline was just shocking.
Was that discipline? That was an Alex Ferguson choice, was it? Was it Fergie that appointed?
I don't know.
Because he obviously did the same with Moyes, and it didn't quite work out with Man U either. And I'm just wondering, maybe he's a great manager, but he has success at a point.
Well, but you just have to look at David Moyes just now. He's doing a fantastic job with West Ham, you know, and Alex ain't stupid. He knows what people can do, you know, and I think if David Moyes had been given more time, you know, and a bit more money, who knows? You just never know, you know. I mean, to me, I actually think United were a bit hasty with Jose as well, you know. I think Mourinho could have eventually turned it for United. And I think Pogba was definitely the first. He was the one that was going. So, and other stories that you hear, he's, I mean, there's no doubt the guy is a real quality player, but he's a liability as well, and it's all about him, you know. So I think Man United will not do anything until he moves on, you know. But it's not just him. I think defensively they've been poor. You know, they're not strong enough. Their neighbours are way ahead of them again. City are far better than United. So defensively anyway.
That sort of shows you that sometimes a great player doesn't always make a great manager.
No, it's true.
You know, and you could consider like Willie Miller, who actually did not bad when you look back now compared to the record since, you know, and that must have been hard moving from a player to a manager in that role. And I know you were a manager yourself for a while with Dundalk. Mm-hmm. And obviously you helped Doug Rugby at Cove Rangers as well, didn't you, for a while? And how did you find that change from being one of the lads?
It's always difficult taking that step for playing to managing, because especially when you've been so successful, you know, you're trying to install habits across to the boys that you're working with. It was difficult at Cove with Dougie and I, because this was part-time football. This was like, these guys all had a livelihood, you know, they all worked, so their football was just their hobby basically, you know. So you couldn't sort of step out of line with these guys or else you would lose them. So, you know, so it was very difficult. But try to install sort of good behaviours and try to get him to play properly, get the ball down and pass it and move and stuff like that. You can only do so much because you're only training 2 days a week as well. We're part-time football players, so it's very difficult. So you've got to try and get him to enjoy it as much as you can, without being too hard on certain people as well.
When you were a player at Aberdeen, was there offers coming for you? Did you turn anything down? Did you consider any other options? What was the deal?
Well, I could have went to Newcastle in '86 after the Hearts Cup final, because Fergie was going off his head because he was away to Mexico with Scotland, and I was coming out of contract that season, so I had a quite a good season, scored a few goals for the club, finished with the 2 in the cup final against Hearts, so he was wanting me to sign before he went, but his offer was a joke. It was embarrassing, so I said no, I'm not signing for that. So that really riled him. He wasn't happy. So eventually he went away with the Scotland squad, and I was left at home. And in that days, you were free to go and speak to other clubs. Once your contract had went out. So at the time, Archie was still at Pittodrie. Dick Donald was still at the club with the chairman. So I didn't have to really tell them anything. But I just thought, well, I'll let them know. I'll say, look, I've been approached by a couple of clubs down in England. So I went down and spoke to the clubs, and okay, financially I would have been slightly better off, but I was looking more at the playing thing, whereas with Aberdeen, I'm thinking, well, next season we are probably going to win more games than we'll lose. Whereas, one of the clubs was Newcastle, right? So I went down to speak to them. Now they were struggling, so I'm thinking, well, they're not get away any games, So I was trying to eye up the situation that, well, do I take a chance and move down to England and play there in a side that's really struggling, or do I keep playing where I am? So after a bit of to and fro, I decided to stay with Aberdeen, right? So I got an increased offer, but it was still. I mean, he was a nightmare, Fergie.
Really?
It was his way or the highway.
No.
Anyway, I signed for Aberdeen, so it was funny. We played, I think it was Dundee United in the opening game of the season down at Tannadice. And on the Friday, we used to get paid weekly, right? So you got your wage packet in the Friday for Barbara in the office. So I gets my wage packet and I'm looking at it and I sees this deductions £100. I'm thinking, the fuck's that? So up there goes up to the office. I says, Bobs, it says deductions £100. Oh, you better go and see the manager. So toddles back down, chaps in the door. I says, Gaffer, can I get a word, please? Aye, in you come. Fit, kid, he was so abrupt. Fit is it? I says, deductions £100. Fit is that? Aye, he says, your fucking body will look here, it's no more. I says, I'm fed up reading the John Hewitt fucking life story in the green final. He was saying he got the green final sent across to Mexico, right? So he was livid because I knocked him back first time, you see, and he had to go away with Scotland. So I was like, I says, hold on a second. I says, I've done nothing wrong. I says, your first offer was a joke. I says, I was no way I was going to be accepting that. I says, now I was well within my rights to go, see out my contract and go and speak to other clubs, just like everybody else does, right? Ah, well, I get out. That was it. Get out. He was honest. That's what he was like. So I walked out the room. So the following week, I gets my wage packet again. Deductions £100. Right, so I goes up to the office. He says, Babs, I says, you took that money off me last week. Oh, you better go and see the manager. And I went, what's going on? He says, I've got to take it off for 5 weeks. I says, I'll be fucking right. So I went straight up to his jaw, chopping the door. And honestly, this is when me and him were at loggerheads. He was sitting in his chair, in his desk, and I was sitting in the other chair. And I sat down and I was like, that's a fucking joke. I says, I've done nothing wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it was really pretty heated. And he was up, because when he got annoyed, his face was bright red. Ken, he was up, and the two of us were up, fucking, and I fucking pushed him back into his seat. And I fucking walked out the door, and he honestly, he hardly spoke to me for 3 months. Hardly spoke to me for 3 months. But I didn't let it go. I didn't let it go because I hadn't done anything wrong, right? So he left to go to Manchester. Porterfield came in. The first thing I did was to Porterfield, I says, right, I says, I want you to go and speak to the chairman. I says, Fergie, find me 500 quid for fuck all. I says, it's an absolute joke. I says, I need you to speak. So I spoke to the chairman. So the following week, here's £400 out the £500 back my wages. The chairman had said, oh yeah, I did think Alec was a bit harsh. I says, too right. I says, because I was coming in, I was telling Archie where I was going. I didn't have to do that. You know, I didn't. I could have went just and spoke to anybody without them knowing. But I thought, right, I'll be courteous. I'll let them know I'm going here. I'm doing this. I'm speaking to them. Right. So I got 400 out the 500. And I says to Porterfield, I says, look, it was 500. Oh, well, but the club need to be seen to be taking something from you. I says, no, you're losing the point here. I've done nothing wrong. I says, I shouldn't have been fined in the first place. But that's what he was like. But he was brutal. I mean, if you were in the treatment room, and you weren't injured, fine. If he caught you, and if you left your boots lying about in the dressing room floor instead of going through the boot room and hanging them up, fined. You know, just absolutely fine you for anything. He used to make you wash his car on a Friday lunchtime, just anything. You know, he was, but that's the way he was. You know.
It sounds like we could do a bit more of that now. You know, it seems like the players get to rule the roost now a little. I mean, what's your take on the sort of player power manager? You know,
it's a difficult one because I really think Derek's done a good job for the club. You know, if you think where we've finished in the seasons that he's been associated with the club, he's done really well. You know, apart from actually winning the league or coming second, we've always been third or fourth. You know, so he's won the League Cup. You know, which was great. But I think possibly if we're going to do anything, that's probably where we could maybe pick up something as maybe a good cup run, get a cup final, and maybe sneak out again, win a cup. But it's difficult when you know it's all about money, as you know, and with the old firm, you're always going to be competing against what they've got, you know, and they're far bigger clubs. They've got a bigger pooling power than Aberdeen as well. So it's a difficult one. So as an Aberdeen manager, you've got to try and get that team spirit like what Fergie had, get good players, but also get that team spirit and that will to win attitude amongst the squad. And if you've got that, you've got half a chance because technically Monday to Friday you're working with them in training, so you're showing them everything that you want them to do. Once they go into that park, they've got to execute what you're asking them to do, you know. But as I say, it's sticking together, fighting the corner, helping your teammates, creating opportunities and winning games. Because the more games you win, what's the word I'm looking for? It builds a great confidence within a group, you know, and you start to believe that you can go basically anywhere and compete with the best of teams and give a good showing. So,
do you think it's maybe gone a bit stale at Pittodrie at the moment after nearly 8 years with the same guy?
Well, he's had a fair innings. Derek's had a fair innings, but as I say, he's done a reasonably decent job, I think. But
like this season,
it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one because this last probably 3 months we've really been poor. You know, we've been really poor, and it's just that, you know, I saw some of the games and it's the attitude. You know, some of the players just they accept defeat too easily. You know, they go out there and you're thinking, you guys are getting paid really good money, but you're not showing me that on the pitch. You know, you're not chasing things down and tackling and stuff like that. And I think as a supporter, I keep saying this, the fans would love to see the commitment on the park, like going out there, having a real go and maybe getting beat 3-1. But after the game, the fans are in the pub, they're having a blather and they're saying, we were so unlucky today. The goalkeepers had 3 magnificent saves. We've hit a bar, we've hit a post, and another day we could have won that game, you know. But Derek's quite defensive minded. He's scared to, and especially the Old Firm. I always feel when we play well against Rangers and Celtic is when we push up, we press them in their half of the park, and we get in about them because we haven't got good enough players to sit off him and let them come to us, and that's what he does. We sit back and you'll play with one up front, 5 across the middle, and we sit back there, and like Celtic and Rangers, they just pick us off because the players at the back will step into the middle of the park with the ball, and they'll just pass through us, and they'll play in between the lines, and they'll just feed little balls through, and it's a matter of time when they get one, and then all of a sudden it's 2, 3, and then it gets embarrassing then, so I would like to see him, especially against the Old Firm, to be more positive. Yeah. But at this moment in time, every game's a difficult game because we're not playing well. Albeit, I didn't see the game today. I didn't watch it, but a few of the boys were saying they were a bit better today. They created even the first game. Last a week past Wednesday or whatever it was. I think after like half an hour, they actually did okay. So, but we've got to really start winning games again. To try and make sure we get our European spot.
As you said, this season they're there for the taking. Celtic are anyway. Last season Rangers were there for the taking, and they've pulled it together. And
Rangers are the best side in the league by far this season. I mean, really, if Aberdeen had shown any commitment this year, we could have been easily second because Celtic have been very, very poor.
And I mean,
very poor.
Tomorrow's the League Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
Livingston, St Johnstone.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know, right? The Old Firm's nailing it.
I know.
Why are we nailing it? Third largest wage in the country. It's arguably a really good squad Aberdeen's got. They do have a really good squad, but after 7-8 years, maybe there's no plan.
Well, it maybe is time. I do think come the summertime, I think, depending how the results are between now and the end of the season, I do think Dave might decide to make a change. I might be wrong. But it's a difficult one because who do you take in?
You and Dougie going in here. You and Doug Rugby.
No, I haven't seen Dougie for years. I haven't seen him. But no, it is a difficult one because I think Derek's done a reasonable, more than a reasonable job. I think he's done a decent job,
And, if, say, the worst case scenario happens, sorry to put you in a spot, but if worst case scenario for Derek McInnes, I think worst case scenario, but if the inevitable happens and fan power does remove Derek McInnes, who do you think would be an option, an actual realistic contender? People band around names like Eddie Howe and stuff like that. Like Eddie Howe, I think, is ever going to come to Scotland and Aberdeen, but he's a good manager, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said to you, my personal preference would be Strachan, and you reminded me that Strachan isn't the best happy with Aberdeen because of how.
No, I don't think you get wee Gordon coming back up here. He doesn't like Aberdeen. Neither does his buddy Mark. They hate Aberdeen.
So who do you think realistically out in the world, even if they're not available right now, is a realistic option with the right attitude, having played at the club, having known the difference between the chalk and the cheese that you spoke about between the Fergie and the Porterfield? Who would make a statement that you think?
It's a difficult one, Adam, because you don't know financially, what a certain individual's looking for and what the club are prepared to pay as well. I mean, in Scottish football, I would say I don't think there's any better than Derek really at the moment. I mean, I think Stevie Clark did a great job at Killie, but obviously he's one national manager now, So,
do you think a young manager like Gerrard with fresh ideas, straight out of the game, who knows the game at a top level, who's gone in and it didn't quite work out the first season round, but it's worked out the second, whether it's a budget thing or whatever, or a tried and tested kind of Tommy Wright, fucking you know what you're going to get kind of thing?
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, obviously, as I said to you, Rangers they've had their problems in the past. It still blows my mind for they can buy all these players. I don't care for the money's coming for him. But anyway, Gerrard, I mean, top player, world class, great great player, you know, and obviously he's taken that step into management. At the time, he's came up to Rangers, and he's had to sort of find his feet a little bit, you know. And remember, he hasn't won anything yet. Get what I mean? So, but he will. That's obvious. It's going to happen. But but I don't know how he works, you know. But obviously, these players respect him. Him and Gary McAllister seem to be a good sort of partnership. You know, they get things across in the training park, and it's showing. And he's had to have a couple of seasons to sort of look at players and get rid of players and bring in other individuals. But by far this season, they've definitely been the stronger of the Old Firm teams. You know, Rangers.
Yeah, they've got a real good back line as well, don't they? And I think a lot of it starts from the back. You know, McGregor is
You
consistent.
know yourself, yeah. You know yourself. If you're strong defensively, you don't lose many goals. You'll always. It doesn't matter. Even if you're a bad side, if you've got a strong back four, you will always create opportunities in the game. It might be one, it might be two, but if one of your players takes that chance and you don't concede a goal, you've won a game.
Yeah.
You know.
No,
So it's important, you know. It's like it's all cliche, you know. But if a manager gets sacked, then obviously the side's not been doing well. So the first thing that the new manager does when he comes in is work with the midfield and the back four to get a bit of understanding, you know, where they should be in relation to where the ball is in the pitch, you know, and just defend. And first and foremost, defend better, you know, be stronger, stand up to things. So, but
you worked obviously with, you know, it was a bit further back, but you had Leighton, McLeish, and Miller, and arguably the best centre half pairing in the country, potentially across the UK, certainly in Europe for a competition, and that just it's like two Virgil van Dijks, isn't it? They just don't come along that often.
well, I mean, Alec and Willie were exceptional. You know, they had Jim behind him, and also remembering you've had fullbacks either side, Stuart Kennedy and Big Doogie, and so Fergie always used to shout at Alec and Willie to squeeze the game up, squeeze the game up. But they knew, you know, they weren't the quickest, so they had to make sure that their line was an area where if it went over the top of them, Jim would be out it, you know. So I wasn't too big a gap that any of the front players were playing against would run away from him and get through 1-on-1 with Jim. So although Fergie was shouting, Willie, Alec, again, squeeze it up, they would just throw him a rubber ear. They wouldn't listen to him because they knew on the park where they had to be, you know. But we were fortunate we had fullbacks. I'm not saying Doogie was electric, you know, but he had a big stride. Stuart was quick, you know, and if you look at some of the other guys that have played in that area could run as well. So always knew how to tuck in and help the centre backs as well when they needed to.
And these guys were always really vocal, weren't they? Like the one thing that always sort of bothers me now, and I'm sure I can speak for everybody on the call. Where's the character in the dressing room? Like when in your time, everybody had a bit of a character. Didn't they?
Yeah. Well, you had to have character. You grew up really quickly, you know, because the banter in the dressing room was brilliant. But you're right, there was so much characters in the dressing room, and especially the younger ones. We respected the elder players, you know. We looked up to them and we took advice for them. But when you were playing on the pitch, if you felt that one or two of them weren't pulling their weight, then you would say to them, come on, Stuart, or this or that. You might get a glower, but they respected it because they probably knew themselves that they weren't having one of their better days, you know. And that's what it's all about. Everybody has bad games, but you can have a bad game and you can still put yourself about. You can tackle, you can shut down people and stuff like that. But you can have that bad game and do nothing, be lazy. And that's what players hate, and especially the managers. If the managers see that, then the fishing rod's out and you're off. We'll just hook you.
Do you reckon, like, I've always had this argument that you need to be really vocal on the pitch, and by shouting your name every time you jump up for a header, you're at least making an effort and you're putting off the players around about you and stuff. Joe Lewis, to me, doesn't strike me as somebody who's a commanding leader, but he's our captain.
That's a real problem I've got at the moment. You know, Joe is a captain. Joe's a really nice guy, but he is very quiet. And to me, I don't think we should have a goalkeeper as a captain. To me, our captain should be someone in the middle of the park, you know, like Lewis Ferguson or McCrory, guys like that if they're going to be regulars in the side, show a little bit of steel, and you're right, vocal, speak to their teammates, and just that's what you're looking for, you know. I mean, we were lucky because although Willie was our captain, we had another 9 or 10 vocal people on the pitch. You know, everybody spoke up and said their partner, and yeah, it's good to have that. You know, it's you just don't rely on your captain. It's nice to see other people in the team are vocal and they're saying their bit, because that's where you get okay, you might have the one or two arguments at half time or full time, but collectively as a group, you respect it, you respect your teammates, you accept it, and then you move on.
So John, do you mind if I ask Adam, just if there's 9 other people are vocal in it, who are you leaving out?
No, well, I'm saying it's
Ignore him.
no, everybody. It's hard. When I think back, I don't think there was any of the boys that I played with weren't scared to say anything. You know, if they felt they needed to say something, they would. You know, and that's the way it is.
And
you know, people you'll listen.
There's that ethos where even if you're not going to win the ball, as long as it sounds like you're going to win the ball, you're putting the players off. You've got that mentality where I'm going to get this, I'm going to win this, I'm going to get every fucking thing on this pitch. And that's obviously what worked for you guys, because everybody was, that's my ball. I'm going to get this, I'm going to win this, you're not getting it.
I think you can win the ball without having to shout and say things as well. You know, you obviously observe, you watch, you try and get in front of people to win it without even having to make a tackle as well. But you're still committed to tackle if you have to go and make a tackle, you know. But it's I'm a bit biased because obviously the era I played in is completely different from what it is now, you know. But as I said to you, I played with a lot of really good players. I'm not saying now the current side are bad, but the guys I played with were totally committed. You know, we had a manager that wouldn't accept anything but the best. You know, he didn't want second best. If you weren't a winner, as I said to you before, there was a door. I'll see you later. You know, and it was total commitment on and off the park. You know.
Do you think that management team developed a group of good players or average players who became exceptional up here as well as down there?
No. He built a squad, a really good squad of players, guys that could play, you know, and he made them even better, you know, and he made the squad believe that we could compete with the best. You know, and that's what it didn't matter where we went, if it was Spain, England, Italy, whatever. He installed the belief with us that we were as good as them, and not to be afraid, go out and play because you're better than them. And we believed him. You know, he was our leader. We believed him. But as I say, we were a good side. We had good players in the team.
Who was it that in your group of people, because there were so many characters, and it doesn't have to be from the early 80s, you know, even if it was when you played for Celtic or when you played for St Mirren, who in amongst all those players that you played alongside, would you say when they walked in a dressing room you were like, Jesus, okay, right, respect? Was there anyone that stood out amongst the rest of them that was just... I
think most football clubs, Adam, have got, you know, leaders in their group. You know, like at Aberdeen, we had Willie, but also Big Alex. Stuart Kennedy was phenomenal. Kiddy was unbelievable. I mean, once he started, you couldn't get a word in sideways. You know, Stuart, it's like if I ever go to functions and Stuart's speaking, he's got the microphone for 2 or 3 hours and nobody else gets it. You know, it's the Stuart Kennedy show. But he's funny. He's very witty and funny with it. But Gordon, John McMaster, Doug Rugby, all these guys were very vocal, you know. So it was the camaraderie, the commitment, the togetherness. We used to meet each other, and like it was the last Sunday every month. I used to be a pub in Aberdeen called the Egg and Dart.
Oh, my dad.
Right? So we used to meet up there at Sunday lunchtime. And if it was just when the football was starting starting on a Sunday, you could watch it on the telly. So we'd meet there, if our game was there, have a bit of lunch there, watch a game, and then it was like out the town, and the Mr. G's was last man standing. But Fergie used to give us a Monday off because he knew, but he encouraged it, to keep us together as a group. It was great, and it was magic. We knew we could go have a laugh, have a few babies, have a bit of a carry on, and then home. You got Monday off, and into training on Tuesday, and you were ready to go again.
Right. What the training was that? I've heard the rumor. Like, who was it? Who was it that left recently? Was it Sam Cosgrove? I think left recently and said, I'm not used to this style of training because we're training twice a day." Now, how often did you guys train? Was it twice a day? Was it in the morning, afternoon?
Initially, when I first went as a young player, then obviously I trained in the morning and I also trained in the afternoon. Archie had the younger ones. We were back every afternoon. Even if you were in the first team squad or not, you still trained in the afternoon, And it's not till you get older you appreciate what he's doing for you, And it's all about working on your touch, your finishing, your movement, everything. At a time when you're doing it, you're thinking, "Oh, fuck's sake, Archie, we're back in again this afternoon," And but once you get older, you start to realise just what he's done for you. Because when you go in the park, you don't think about it; you just do it. It's natural, It's the movement's natural, the touch is natural, all these sort of things, and these are things that he's doing to make you a better player, And that's why, as you get older, you start to appreciate it more.
Aye. What last couple of questions before obviously everyone's chomping at the bit here to talk as well. But who out of the current squad, whether they're playing for Aberdeen now or they're on loan or they're youngster coming through, is there anyone in particular that you rate highest that you've seen and thought, they're going to be all right, or I like how they play, or even if they're not flavour of the month for the manager right now, what who stands out for you?
I wouldn't say it's difficult, but I wouldn't say there is a standout. I wouldn't say as like, a real he will do well. Head on to him next season. He'll some of the big clubs down south will come calling. So
Yeah. Even before, obviously you've got McKenna. Like McKenna was in Arbroath one season, and then all of a sudden we were turning down 7 million.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Like, could you work out where that immediate, ridiculous interest?
It's like everything else, you have maybe half a dozen really good games or a bit more, or play really well that season, and then the press can make you a world beater, but they can also make you right at the bottom, just absolutely shit. So fortunately for Scott at the time, he had a really, really good season for Aberdeen, and all of a sudden he broke into the international level, and he done reasonably well when he first went in. And then all of a sudden people were talking about, £5-6 million sort of thing. And then after that, his performances went really downhill. I thought to myself, fuck's sake, if we're getting 6 million, let's take it now. Because he was really, him and his good pals with Mickey Devlin, okay, Mickey had problems with his knees. He had his ACL done before he came to Aberdeen, and he got through all that. But he's always had proper injury problems. And then I was a few games I was across watching, and the two of them were really struggling. One of the games was Livingston. Actually, I can't remember who played up front for Livingston, but they gave that to a real torrid time. And I just thought, we're speaking about £6 million worth here, and I'm not seeing that at all. But it's, man, the COVID thing's changed absolutely everything, for the football club, So obviously, like I said, the club saw the opportunity to cash in and let Scott go, and good on him. It was good money for the football club. It's good for Scott as well, and Big Sam as well. The same thing happened with him. If you look at him, when he came up, I think it was Carlisle or wherever it was he come from, hardly scored any goals, and then he struggled to start with us, and then following season, he was scoring basically every other week. Okay, he's bagged a few pens, but he's still scoring goals. And to be fair, he was our only goal threat then. If we didn't have him on the side, we would have really struggled.
I think it was in 20 odd games or something before he actually got a goal scoring run.
Yeah, but then after that he done really well. He went on a great run for the club, but then this year he's been absolutely shit.
Yeah.
Excuse my French, but that is it. I go obviously before the COVID scenario. And I used to go to the games and that. So, but I've obviously watched a few of the games. Prior to him leaving to go to Birmingham as well, and his commitment's just shocking. Really? He stands up front. He's not prepared to go and shut down defenders in wide areas or whatever. And I mean, he's a big lump of a guy, but he doesn't use his physical presence as well as he should do as well. But you could see that he was. Obviously the club had turned down offers for him in the past. You could see his heart wasn't in it. Because you could see that on the pitch the way he was performing. Yeah. So I think the club did the right thing, letting him, selling him on to Birmingham and cashing in on him.
What when you played, did you have any kind of, you see certain players, they'll kiss the grass or they've got a lucky scarf or a lucky glove or something. Did you have any kind of, Brian Irvin had his faith. Okay, Brian Irvin, he was very much in his faith and respect to him. That's where he found his strength from. Was there a particular thing or a moment or, an emblem or a trinket or something that you would do before a game what was there anything at all?
Yeah.
No, you just ask your wife.
You just used to look forward to Saturday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day it was the game was. That was what you look forward to. You trained hard and you were hoping that you were going to be in the starting 11, and then once the referee blew the whistle, it was game on, totally focused on what you were trying to do and try and achieve the result for the club.
What tips would you have for the Aberdeen team down here in London, right? Okay, so we've been struggling of late, but what would you, as a Dons legend, as a goal scorer of many important goals, what would your advice be for a group of guys who may have been a bit rough by the wayside the night before, turning up and doing their best? What would be your advice?
Well, without having seen you play, right? Firstly, I would say enjoy. I mean, it's your enjoyment, right? So you've really got to enjoy. Look forward to your game on a Sunday, and what I'm just saying, the same thing applies to you guys. Stick together on the park as a group. Even if things go against you, keep working, keep trying to do the proper things, control it, pass it and move. Control, pass it and move, and stick together up the park as a unit, defend as a unit. But for you boys, listen, it's all about enjoyment. It's all about enjoying yourself because, once the game's finished, you're in the boozer, a couple of pints, having a laugh, and then you've got your work the next day or whatever, so it's enjoyment more than anything.
And
we haven't been beaten in 3 months, Adam. Just remember that, all right?
Played in 3 months, Colin, if I remember right.
That's right. That was when you played your last game, is it?
Absolutely. And finally, I think it's more your son Nicky who's keen on it rather than yourself. Brian Irvin's up for it. I'll tell you that for nothing. He's well up for it. So the way I'm looking at this is Brian Irvin at the back, Nicky Hewitt in the midfield, and John Hewitt up front. The next time you're all...
You need to get a wheelchair for me.
Yeah, we've got rolling socks, so you can come up for 5 minutes. But can we have some sort of semi-commitment that next time you're in London, you'll at least come along and say hello?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely come down and say hello. I couldn't. As much as I would love to participate, I done my back about 8 years ago, and honestly, I've had horrendous problems with my back. So it was actually playing fives with some of the boys I used to play with. I tore my hamstring and stupidly didn't do anything about it. And since then I've had horrendous problems with it. So.
Well, all I can say is good, because I remember playing fives with you, and I went over my ankle and broke a bone in my ankle. And the next day when I turned up at work, you just called me a sissy and pushed me, and it was absolute agony for about a week afterwards. So thanks for that. So I'm glad you're injured, um, but all joking aside, we would love to at least see you if you can on a Saturday or a Sunday next time you're down. And all I'll say is, on behalf of everybody, really appreciate you getting involved today. Um, I need a piss. I don't know if anyone else needs a piss, right? But I'm going to open it up to whoever's on the call to unmute themselves. Try and just be one at a time, and and speak to John. If you've got a question for John, now's the time to do it. And if John, if you're happy to continue, we'll have a
Ah,
general
no problem.
whatever. But
Fire away.
I can
George,
tell Callum's chomping at the bit, so I'll leave you with him while I go for a pee.
I was just going to say, should we do the raise hand? Should we do the raise hands thing? Because I think we can all see who does the raise hands, and that way, if everyone does the raise hands, well, I'll fucking call whoever raises hands.
Go on then.
Callum, go ahead. Do your question.
Well, okay, fine. No, honestly, you mentioned like Fergie, giving you the winning mentality, and you all expected to win in Glasgow,
Mm-hmm.
But and also that he bowled you out and gave you a fucking bollocking. But so I remember reading something like after he retired, he went over to Harvard and gave a guest lecture, and it was all about positive reinforcement as well. So I just sort of wonder like what the balance was like during the week versus game time and things like that, But also like because he wouldn't expect you to win just by saying if you don't win, I'll fucking kill you.
No, it's that. Well, you can imagine the start of the season, you'd sometimes be playing Saturday, Wednesday, So he kept the training to a minimum because your body needs to recover. It's they say that the specialists say it takes your body 72 hours to physically recover properly for you to be able to go out there and give 100% a commitment again for the following game. So we would always, if we played on the Saturday, obviously rest on the Sunday, you come in the Monday, do a light session on the Monday, light session on the Tuesday, and then you'd be playing again on the Wednesday. Thursday would be rest, and obviously the guys that didn't play would come in and train with the reserves and that. But if you played, you would come in, maybe get a massage, rub down, whatever. But he liked you to rest, because he knew how much rest was important. I don't know if, like when he was at Man United, these guys, he put them away to some guy to make sure that they all got fitted with the best mattresses possible for their beds, so they were getting proper sleep. He was unbelievable. He looked into absolutely everything.
Oh, fair play.
Very clever guy. I mean, his football knowledge is second to none. He's just like an encyclopedia at football, from past to present. He could go way back, but his knowledge of football's phenomenal.
And so when you say you needed you'll take a couple of days to sort of recover from the last game, your body. So I think most of our bodies need a week to recover from the last session at the pub.
Well, don't drink so much then.
Maybe that's our Achilles heel. Maybe that's what we need to do to get.
John, the games kick off at 2:00, and some guys still can't make it. Most up at 10:30 Sunday morning.
Listen, Aberdeen had I'm not naming names, but I'm sure you'll know. Aberdeen had a manager that couldn't make a game one time because he was eating the sauce the night before.
John, can I ask you, when you scored the goal against Real Madrid, the celebration was a bit weird. You didn't seem to know what to do.
No, correct. I didn't know. Obviously when I fell down, because the pitch was like a paddy field. It was absolutely saturated. It was muddy, So when I fell down, my hands were sort of wet, covered in mud, soaking. So I sort of picked myself up, wiped my hands in my shirt, and then did the star jump, as everybody knows. And then Big Doogie came running across and sort of wrestled me at the ground, But it was one of these things. I didn't know what. It was the first thing that sort of came into my mind. What's that?
What were the rest of the players doing? You thought they'd be rushing over to you?
To be honest with you, I didn't really remember much about the rest of them. It was Big Doogie. He was the first one that sort of grabbed me, then sort of wrestled me. Then the two of us were sort of hands up to the supporters and the terrace and that. But great moment, like.
Have you listened to all the commentary, like the Scottish version and the English version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'll tell you this one, right? When we went to Gothenburg, that was back in the day when you had the video recorders. Well, I didn't set my video for extra time, did I? So I didn't get the whole game tape, but as the years progressed, obviously you get the DVDs and stuff, so everybody's sending you the stuff, so I've got everything. But even to this day, I have never watched the full game. A lot of my pals say to me, "You're off your head, blah, blah, blah," and that, but don't get me wrong, it's fantastic history. It's the highlight of my footballing career. It's without blowing trumpet as well. It'll never happen again at Aberdeen. It was just that one special era that Fergie had together a group of boys that I was telling you about, that we really believed in one another. We had a great camaraderie between the squad. We fought each other's corner from our own park, but we were also a good team. We were good players, and he got the best out of us, and we believed that we could compete with the best, and we did.
Well, if you watch the Ipswich Aberdeen game, which I've watched most of it, the standard was really high.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you remember, Ipswich were the top side. They had some great players in their squad. So that was a real achievement as well for us to go and beat them. Peter absolutely destroyed Mick Mills, who was the England. I think was he the England captain then, or he was England right back anyway. But the second leg of Pataudry, he just gave him a nosebleed.
If we set up the Cup Winners' Cup game, the whole game, including the 90 minutes, down here in London for a night, would you watch the whole game for the first time in your life with us as London Dons?
Oh well, you never know, mate.
When did you actually come on in that game?
I come on for it. Eric went over his ankle. I come on for it. Eric late in the game, and then, to be honest with you, the exact time I can't even remember. I can't remember. I just remember coming on for Eric, and then obviously the rest history.
John, can I ask you, was it hard for you when you reached the end of your career? Because you retired fairly young, even in striker terms. Was it difficult for you to adjust from playing professional football to just getting into an alternate, a more regular life?
I think it's always difficult when football's been your life. You dread that day when it comes, but unfortunately, it does come along. And it comes along quicker than you expect it. I feel very fortunate. I played football till I was 36. So I had quite an extensive sort of career in the game. But when it does come along, it's like, when I played, I wish I was playing now with the same group of boys, because financially we would all be loaded. We wouldn't have to worry about working, But unfortunately, when I played football, I wasn't the money in football. So it's a difficult thing, because it's been your life and when you've got to step away from it, it's very difficult. But fortunately for me, I was lucky. I bumped into an old school friend of mine, who Adam knows, and he offered me a job in his recruitment agency, So I was still playing. Neil Cooper was manager up at Ross County at the time, and I had sort of came back to Aberdeen from over in Ireland, and I was sort of hunkering with, do I keep playing? I had been at Cove with Doogie and that, and I said to myself, well, do I keep playing, or do I just sever it altogether and concentrate on a job, But fortunately, for a couple of years, I was able to help Neil out at Ross County, so I could still play. It was part-time football, but I was still playing. And then I went to Cove with Big Doogie. And then when I came away from Cove, that was it. It was concentrate on my job. But I was very fortunate. I had a great career. I was very lucky to have such a long sort of career in football. Okay, I had quite a few injury problems and that, but as I say, when you start playing, you don't envisage these things, Unfortunately, the things just happen, and you've just got to sort of get over it.
Yeah, I always think it must be hard to cope with your inevitable age and physical decline. You're no longer able to do what you used to do. It must be particularly hard for a top flight professional like yourself.
Oh, it's a it's a nightmare because
Aye.
you put your body through the mill when you were younger. You know, I mean, if you think about it, we were training every day of the week bar a Sunday. You know, or training or playing. You know, so it was physical commitment every day of some description. You know, but it's your job. You know, you've got a real passion for it. You love it. It's the best job in the world. So why would you know? You know, but
Yeah.
it's just when that day does come along. You know, because as you get older, then the legs don't move so quickly, you know, and then so you've got to adapt, and you end up probably maybe playing in a midfield role, and you've got to use your head and your touch, you know, differently. Whereas when you're younger and you're quick, you can get about the park a lot easier, you know. So, but no, I've no regrets. I mean, if I could have turned the clock back, then I would have never left Aberdeen. You know, I had no intention. I didn't want to leave Aberdeen, you know, because I'm an Aberdeen boy. I didn't really want to leave, but unfortunately, as I say, Mr. Porterfield came, and I just couldn't work with him. You know, I mean, when he came after Fergie in '86, I was, I think, the top goal scorer at the end of that season, and then he wanted to start playing me in midfield. You know, okay, he took Davy Dodds and Charlie in, you know, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And I said to him, I said, look, at least give me the opportunity to play me up front. But his sort of his management of the players. You know, with Fergie, everybody trained together, even the young 16, 17-year-old players trained with the first team. Ian Porterfield didn't do that. You know, he had a squad of 18 players, and that's all he wanted to work with. The rest of them went with Teddy Scott, and Teddy. So anybody who wasn't in that 18 went with Teddy, and Teddy worked with them, and Ian Porterfield and Jimmy Mullen just worked with the 18. And the training was repetitive. It was the same thing every day. I mean, it was just basically 3 groups in a triangle. So you pass it to that group and run to the opposite group. So he did that for about 15 minutes, and then you had a 9-a-side game. And that was his training, you know. So he didn't work on things. He didn't work on set pieces, you know, functional things that it would help for you to break down the opposition and the team you were playing that coming week, you know. So that's why I wasn't a great lover. I mean, he was a really nice guy, but tactically. And in my very first pre-season that year, he took us to Dawlish, down Torquay way or whatever it is. And nothing against that, you know, because with Fergie, you often used to go abroad in Germany or wherever we were going. But we went to Dawlish this year. We flew to, I think it was maybe Gatwick, and then we had to bus it down there. And our first game was on the Sunday against a local amateur team, and we were out in the piss on the Saturday. You know what I mean? Now, that would have never happened with Fergie. Never happened with Fergie. If he caught anybody out drinking, you would have been like that. You get up the fucking road, and you get up the road at your own expense. You know what I mean?
How did you get on? What was the result?
I was at a local amateur side, but the thing was, Adam, we were out, right? It was so funny. We got there about, I think it was 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We dumped our stuff in the hotel, and we had a wander into the local place. I can't remember if it was, and then there was 1 or 2 bars, kids and the boys were sitting outside having a couple of beers, and then it was back to the hotel, 7:30 for our meal, because he says, right, we're eating at 7:30, so we're back in there. And then somebody had found out that I was a nightclub around the corner of where we were staying. So the next minute, the hell lot of us were in there. And then I think it was about 1:30 in the morning, we're all sneaking back into the hotel. And here's Porterfield and Jimmy sitting in the bar. "In you come, boys! In you come!" We couldn't believe what we're seeing. We're thinking, oh no, we fucking had it here. We're about to get sent up the road or fined or heavily fined if ever. In the bar. He wouldn't let us go away till we had a drink with him.
Fuck me. That's mad.
And then he took us when Charlie signed, right, this was a classic. He took us to Benidorm. Benalmadena in the Costa del Sol. And it was hilarious. As you can imagine, that one stretch of road is horrendous. We had one training session, right? And it was two lines, as you can imagine. It's maybe a serves 20 of us, right? So it's two lines of 10, and we're jogging along the main stretcher road in the Costa del Sol, dodging the cars, in and out the shops. It was embarrassing, and we turned down this lane, and then it was like a area which was like a big square, and it was quiet, and we did like, it was like a running thing out to him and Jimmy Mullen and back, and that was the training session we did, and then he went AWOL for a couple of days. Aye, he went AWOL, and I was sharing a room with Dodgy, right? And the night we were due to go home the following day, we were up in the room packing our bag, and he's looking out the balcony. He's like, "You come and see this." I'm out in the balcony, and here's the manager, Porterfield, walking up the road, hanging out the parked cars outside the hotel. Absolutely spangled. Jimmy, you saw it the next minute, you saw Jimmy Mullen coming out of the hotel, arm around him and taking him in and that. And I thought, fucking, he went missing. There was a little bar across from the hotel, open pool table and stuff like that. Charlie and the boys were there every day. One set, honestly, we didn't train at all. We were all there for 5 days. We flew back on the Friday, and we were playing, I think it was Dunfermline at Hope on the Saturday, and we won, I think it was maybe 2-0 or 2-1 or something like that.
So the training methods worked.
Yeah.
Well, it was all over the press back home, right, that we were training really hard. Training's going really well. It was so far-fetched, honestly. It was embarrassing. But that's I'm saying, that's the difference between Sir Alex and Ian Porterfield. And Ian Porterfield was a really nice guy, but he didn't have, again, his football knowledge and his drive to succeed was like night and day compared to Fergie. Yeah.
And Fergie's a no-nonsense guy, obviously. It's proven over the years.
You knew, listen, right from the word go, he set down the rules and the disciplines and stuff like that. If you stepped out of line, boy, he would absolutely hammer you.
You got I think it was the Scottish Cup, 9.6 seconds, I think. Fastest ever goal scored in a cup final.
Mm-hmm.
And then you scored that 2 goals against Hearts, which would be the 86 final that you're talking about, when Fergie gave you a shitty sign-on wage, and you won man of the match in that award. Ian, to answer your question, 87 minutes in the European Cup final is when John came on for Eric Black. 87 minutes in the game itself.
Yeah.
Probably different back then as well. You probably weren't allowed to make subs in the extra time. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh no, you can still make the substitutions.
I'm glad we've mentioned the subs thing, John, because in our games in London we have rolling subs. So when you come on, right, you can play for 5 minutes and then we'll get you back off again. So
I think it'll last 5 minutes.
How many? Was it just one sub back then in '83?
No, I was 5 subs on the cup final. I was 5 subs on the bench, but I think they could use 2 out of the 5.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
Two for a win as well, wasn't it? 2 points for a win.
Yeah.
Hey John, obviously we at one point Windass obviously was sponsored by Team with Aberdeen, and do you remember any particular? I mean, I remember a couple of wild nights, but do you remember any particular chaos with Dean Windass in particular when as a
Dino see some like no, I wanna go there, but he is a bomb scare. He is he's a great guy, but he's a real bomb scare, like Dino.
Yeah.
Do either of you guys keep in touch with him at all? How did he feel about his son's shocking signing decision?
I haven't seen, honestly, since Dean left Aberdeen, I haven't seen him. I saw him once, he came up once, and Adam will know, Terry, who was our old boss at the recruitment agency, he sponsored him when he was at Aberdeen, so he was quite close with him, and he came up for a weekend, and like a few of the boys that our boss is friendly with, there's this pub called the Gang Hut, they call it, the Gang Hut, so that's where Dino spent most of his weekend in the Gang Hut with the boys, and he was just pissed every day.
Yeah, he was a character, was he?
A real character, like he was a good player as well, really good player.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
going back to an earlier question, was there any particular player that would walk in a room in your time that would be like, fucking hell, he's like on a different level? I mean, you were surrounded by great players.
Uh,
But was anyone? I mean, you were at Middlesbrough for a couple of games, weren't you? A couple, you know, I think you got injured.
see what you're saying there. Like you're like, oh, you're in awe of somebody, but that wasn't the case when we were at Aberdeen because you respected the opposition and you looked up to these players, but you weren't in awe of them. You know what I mean? Because
Did you get on with the other team players quite well? Was it all,
yeah.
even the
Like you
Rangers
just,
and the other players, was it all really, on the pitch, obviously it's a battle, but off the pitch,
yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, there was one or two players that I held grudges and stuff like that, but off away for the football side of things, everybody used to get on sort of well enough with one another, But once you cross that line, it's blood and thunder, You're out there to get a result in any way possible.
Do you even overlook things like diving bashers like Durant?
Anyway, Callum. Right. Anyway, on the flip side, John. Right. On the flip side, was there any players you played alongside that you fucking hated? Was there anyone? Absolutely.
Well, I didn't play alongside, but I played against. There was a few, primarily Rangers players.
Yeah.
But as I say, listen, they play for the opposition. They've got a job to do as well, So it's just like everything else. You respect them on the part, but you're out there to get one over in them.
What's what do you keep? What sort of fitness thing do you do now? Do you do a little bit of football or anything like that now or what?
Fitness.
Hey.
No, honestly, Adam, up until, as I said to you, about 8-9 years ago, I was having a game of fives with the boys, but I hurt my back. Well, I tore my hamstring, and since then, I've had horrendous back problems.
Yeah.
I've fucking been every physio, chiropractor, osteopath, you name it. So, I'm still having issues with it. So, I just enjoy myself now. And I get my game of golf on a Saturday with my pals, and that's about all the exercise I do.
Absolutely. Well, tell me if you a couple last questions because I'm conscious that you've been on the phone for an hour and a half now. So we really appreciate your time. If you were to, if you were the Aberdeen manager, right? Just tell me a couple of things. Formation, right?
Uh-huh.
If you got to sign three players in the current Scottish Premier League, any three players, and what would be your statement to the players when you go into a game? Like, as in, we're gonna fucking do this. Right. So three things. What's your formation? What three players would you sign at the current SPL? And what would be your mission statement, as they say?
Right. Well, how I would set up would certainly wouldn't be playing one. I would go. I think Aberdeen would look much better playing with a back four and four across the middle of the park with either Johnny Hayes wide left or Matty Kennedy along that sort of lines, and probably have McCrory and Ferguson in the middle of the park. But we sets up with that two playing as a five, but they're playing. If you watch them, they're more playing like fullbacks than wide players.
Yeah,
So
Johnny.
I would be encouraging them to play further forward because firstly, these two guys are forward-thinking players. They're not defenders. They've not got defensive qualities really. And okay, Johnny's, I would say, is a slightly better, if you would say, a fullback, although he isn't a fullback, but he could play the role better than Matty Kennedy. Matty's definitely a fullback, But I wouldn't. For me, I would be having a back four, and I would play four across the middle of the park with that two in the wider areas, and I'd play two up front. Big striker. I think. I mean, we were unfortunate that we lost Watkins because I felt he did a good job for the team. He brought the side, he held the ball up well and he brought everybody into play. And when Hedges and even Scotty Wright, when they were playing, because they're quick, they were creating things, and we were looking sort of decent side then, but all that sort of fell apart. We've had horrendous injury problems with the squad. Players have moved on now, so it's testing times for Derek just now. Like,
Yeah. you got Johnny Hayes left back, like it was just really bizarre, or left wing back, or whatever he is. Every
He
corner.
needs to play. He needs to play him further forward of the park, and just so he's for me, right? I would be working with I'd have a new left back. Andrew Considine been a magnificent servant for the club, but Andy's 35, 36 years of old age now, so he's had his time really. I mean, although he could probably still step into the side, for me, probably as a centre back and do a man marking job as a centre back. But when you put him out in the left back area, he gets exposed, and anybody that's got reasonable pace gives him a torrid time because Andy can't cope with that. But that's not really his fault because, as I say, he's been a great servant for the club, but age is catching up with him now, you know. So, but I would definitely the full-back areas. I would be looking for my two full-backs and my two wide players, and that would be the two guys I would be working with training every week to create them. I wouldn't care if it was the fullbacks getting beyond the wide players or the wide players, as long as we were getting width and getting crosses into the box. And then, well, we haven't got Big Sam now, but you're looking for your strikers to be on the end of things and one of your central midfield players backing things up, you know, running about the edge of the box. And I think if we played like that, we would certainly create a lot more than the way we play just now, just playing one up, you know, because we seem to drop back into our half of the park, and a lot of the time we're playing in our half of the park instead of playing in the opposition's half of the park, you know.
So is that a 4-4-2? Is that what you would?
I would play 4-4-2. I think we create more opportunities playing a 4-4-2, and I think we looks more solid at the back as a 4. The 3 for me doesn't work.
What?
Big Ash is a bomb scare. He gets caught out of position. He ball watches and that, and not only that, as a 3, we didn't communicate very well. We didn't talk, you know. And we're speaking about leaders on the park, you know. Big Andy's quiet. Tommy Hoban's quiet. Big Ash doesn't really say much things as well, you know. So I think as a unit, I think we would look better as a 4 rather than a 3.
Yeah, and vocal, of course, at the back. It always baffles me why would you have a defense that you can't hear? In my head personally. But anyway, what 3 players in the SPL that you've seen would you sign for Aberdeen if you were the manager?
God. Well, well, I like your boy Ryan Kent at Rangers, although he's playing for Rangers. We need definitely, and the game needs good wide players, and he certainly brings that to the Scottish game anyway.
Is
You know,
that the Rangers, John? Just to correct you, is that the Rangers?
he's good. He's a good player. He's quick. You know, he can beat people and he can score a goal as well. So I would think he would definitely be one. Um, I think we definitely need a dominant centre back. You know, we need somebody in there. That's a difficult one, really. You know, you look at the Scottish game and you say, well, where are the dominant centre backs in Scottish football? Really, I don't really see any. You know, but it's an area I think we definitely need to. I mean, end of this season it's got to be a big. It's got to be a big shake up, right? Big shake up because financially the money's near there. I've spoke to the chairman. He often, well, not often, but he's been on our chat, and I have a chat on a Wednesday with Bobby Clark, Lenny Taylor, Wee Joe, Willie Miller, a few of the boys and that. So, and Dave's came on a couple of times because he's quite friendly with Bobby, and he was saying that he says it's maybe now time to give youth an opportunity. Plus, the club are hemorrhaging money as well, you know. So a lot of the guys, you know, that's why you saw Curtis May and these guys, they're offloading them because they really weren't bringing anything to the team, but they were all getting reasonably good wages, you know. So it was time to get rid of some of these boys. So I think we'll see what summertime brings. You know, it's
Edmondson, the guy from Leeds. What's the story behind that?
he was on loan, but he picked up an injury as well, so he went back to Leeds when he was fit, and then he was no sooner back at Leeds, and I think he ended up away to somebody else doing an English Championship.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one because
could do with them right now. I think just
Yeah,
Oh, we're struggling. We're
I-
really struggling just
it's
now.
funny. 117 years we've had managers bitch about the training facilities and Seaton Park, and you
Yeah.
running up and down the sand dunes at Aberdeen Beach. Yeah, we've got Cormac Park, which must be the only uh, up to date training facility that isn't fucking covered in one of the worst places on fucking earth for some reason. They never thought.
Well, there is ground out there that they have the capabilities to build an indoor facility if they need it, But I mean, nowadays, the facility is great. They've got a great training facility. But as you rightly said, Ken, like we were running about Seaton Park, dodging the dog shit and all, hang on, but that's how it is. It's your commitment to your training sessions. The guys have got to put in the work and not listen to your coaches and whatever. And it doesn't matter where you're training, you make the best of a situation. So nowadays, I mean, the players get so mollycoddled. They get the best at everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything,
Is that why Peter Weir had such a great, great change of direction because he was used to dodging dog shit?
Possibly. No, Peter was a great player, absolute great player. And he was one with great balance. He could go on his left or his right hand side. And if you speak to Peter, he'll tell you he was a late developer in the game. He didn't really come into professional football till I think he was around about 2021, with St Mirren and that. So, but he turned out to be a great signing for Aberdeen.
that's the thing, John. You said earlier at the start. You said about you were just playing football at school, and all the great players of the 70s and 80s seem to have been spotted at school and playing for their school or their county. Now it's all football academies.
I know.
It's become very middle class.
It is. I mean, I actually feel a wee bit sorry for some of the school kids nowadays because a lot of these senior clubs now they're taking the best of kids at like 6 and 7 years of age, and they're stopping them for playing for their school. Now, at that age, it's about enjoyment for the kids. They've really got to enjoy playing for their school on a Saturday morning or their boys' club and that. But the senior clubs are stopping that now. And what's happening is these kids are going maybe twice a week to the training sessions, but they might not get a game at the weekend, so they're missing out in football. Some of them, it's only a certain amount of them get to play in the games. So I'm not a lover of that, to be quite honest with you. I think, especially at that young age, it's about mere enjoyment for the kids. Let them enjoy it, whether it's with their school or their boys' club or whatever it is. Because I'm a great believer. If you've got the talent and ability, people will see that. And when you get older, they will then decide to take you at a certain age and start working with you and developing you into a professional football player.
In terms of just like when you say if they're not the best players are not playing when they're wee with each other,
Yeah.
A lot of
right,
people develop playing with good players,
develops.
don't they?
Yeah, everybody develops at a different age. I mean, I've played with some really, really good players at school level, like say 13 to 16 years of age. And then all of a sudden, when they're 17, 18, it's like they lose the heart to want to play, and then they just walk away from it. But when you saw them playing when they were younger, you were thinking, what a player he is. He's going to make it easily. But it doesn't work out that way. So, and it's like every profession, you've got to work hard at it if you want to get to the top, and become a better player. Listen to your coaches, work hard at your training, your touch, your control, everything, if you want to be a top player.
Can I ask you, John, about success? In your professional opinion, is success purely a product of hard work? Or have you come across other people who are just blessed with a natural talent who can get by in that?
I think the modern game, you've got to have talent to make it anyway, but you've also got to put the work in as well, because if you're a good football player, if you don't work, it doesn't mean to say you're going to make it. But I think more and more managers nowadays would rather have guys that are totally committed, that their work ethic is right. They're out, they're shutting down people, they're tackling and stuff like that. Because a lot of guys nowadays, they're not gifted with that ability of like the Charlie Nicholas is not, but they'll go out there for 90 minutes and they'll run, they'll tackle. And some managers, that's all they want, you know. They might not be great on the ball, you know, and their vision might not be great, but the total commitment of tackling and that sort of thing is more than enough for certain people.
There was one player who played for Rangers who I think was with understand was Stuart Monroe. He seemed to be the player for Rangers who just did his job and he played really well. But he wasn't he didn't get the kind of recognition.
Yeah, that's right. I remember Stuart, fullback. Yeah, and that's it. Everybody's different. You know, like you say, you've got the superstars that they know they're good, they're very vocal, but they can handle the expectations and the pressure that goes with that because
like Andrew Considine, when he got picked for Scotland, I think all the opposition fans were actually quite shocked at how well he did.
I know, but to be honest with you, we've been saying for ages it was long overdue because you know what you're getting for Andrew. He's totally committed, week in and week out. He gets out there and he gives you everything he's got. Sometimes it's not great, other times it's brilliant, and he's up there and he'll bag you a few goals, important goals and stuff like that. And at that given time, he was playing really well for the club, and I really respect Stevie Clarke because he'd been watching and paying attention, and nobody else did it, but he was prepared to give him an opportunity, and he put him in, and you're right, he did really well. He never let the nation down. He done really well, so it was good on him, you know.
He classed him as a 7 out of 10, right? Before when he picked him up, he classed him as a solid 7 out of 10. And in a world of like mental health and everything, do you think that's like a fucking cheeky thing and a horrible thing to actually class somebody as your 7 out of 10?
But as an individual, you didn't listen to these comments, getting the media and the press and that. Because I said to you, they can put you there, but they can also put you right at the bottom as well. So, Ken, if you forget about them, the most important person on the park is you. You know when you've played well and when you haven't played well. You come off that park, you say to yourself, I could have done better there today. I didn't. My work rate wasn't as good as it should have been. I wasn't committed to this and that. You know yourself. You know, the only person you're cheating is yourself. But if you go there and you come off the park and you think, oh, well, I couldn't have tried anymore. I've done everything I could. And you get the days where it goes for you. You play really well and the fans love you and that. And then you get the days where you have a stinker and the fans are calling you everything. But that's football, you know. You just got to get on with it.
Yeah, guys, we're approaching nearly 2 hours now in John's time, and you know, really appreciate him tuning in. So, has anyone got anything else? If you have on the screen, put both hands up. Let me know if you've got a question for John. Otherwise, we'll let him go. Anyone got a question at all? Anything at all? Okay.
Probably loads more, but I think you've probably done quite well.
Yeah. Well, you know, John, you're welcome to stay if you want to carry on talking nonsense with us.
I know, I'm gonna wait to get something to eat. I think it's time for my supper.
That's fair. Listen, you've been incredible as always, and you know, not only are you a legend for Aberdeen Football Club, but we all incredibly respect you. I know you, having worked with you, and I know you are just as nice off field as you are on field, and I'm sure everyone tonight can agree that John Hewitt is a legend. So let's give John a round of applause and thank him once again for his time. And yeah,
we'll certainly stand you a few pints when you're down if you come down.
Absolutely. You know I'll be in touch. We'll make it happen. We'll get you guys down. You know, get Lorraine down, and or worst case, just have a boys' weekend. Get Nikki.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And and we'll get you on for 5 minutes just to say that you've played for the Aberdeen FC team of London. Okay.
Then I have to fucking register as an extra player for fuck's sake.
John, before you go, I'm the most successful manager to ever be because I won the league.
Good. I think the current one's not doing well, is he? Or is he assistant?
That's Callum.
His assistant's great.
Look, Ian, back in the day, you didn't have to get up at 7 a.m. to check who last logged onto their WhatsApp at 5 a.m. and know that they're not going to turn up.
I didn't even have WhatsApp. Email.
Exactly.
So do you know when you think you might get back playing again, or is it going to be kibosh?
End of March, I think it's the first game.
End of March.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
There's another league in London with like 10 divisions, and I kind of follow their kind of rule because I'm on the league. I'm on the committee of the league as the referee secretary and also involved in the Aberdeen lot.
He gives us dodgy pens.
You know, and even though we've got a referee secretary, he doesn't do very much. So I follow that other league has got like 10 leagues and follow there because they're well organised and they're trying to get things started on Easter Sunday. And I was trying to see what availability for our teams to play on Easter Sunday because we've got there's no and the English FA have extended things to the end of June, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, good stuff. So you'll be looking forward to getting a game again, huh?
Yeah,
definitely.
I hope you've all been keeping yourself fit.
Aye. Run a half marathon every weekend.
Good stuff. Oh well, listen, it was nice having a chat with you boys.
Yeah, thanks.
Hopefully I'll maybe get an opportunity to see you face to face sometime.
Yeah, we'll sort it out in when things are back to normal. We'll get you down, and even sometimes we last a couple of years ago we had Craig Brown and Rob Wicks who came down for sort of Rob Roy Reds Aberdeen Strollers kind of end of season chat. So that was quite nice, and it'd be great to have someone who could come and actually play a game as well. So yeah.
Oh, we'll better look for somebody then.
I'm talking about Brian Irvin.
Aye, big Brian, he'll play.
Oh, aye.
Get him down.
Yeah.
Russ Lanson came down a couple of years beforehand as well. Like him and George Hill.
Russell's about fucking 20 years younger than me.
She'll be running around after Lorraine now that she's.
I know. Next couple of months anyway.
Aye.
I've been doing that for the last fortnight.
Everybody, thanks again, John.
Yes,
John,
okay.
thanks
Nice
a
meeting
lot.
you, boys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
see you later.
Take care.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, guys,
Nice one, Adam.
appreciate it.